All right, we are following on developments right now, especially in Ukraine and what Donald Trump will do when he returns to the White House. We've been hearing a lot as well about the Russians themselves saying we don't expect anything to happen too soon. The Russian Foreign Ministry saying that the president-elect's promises to resolve this crisis in Ukraine fast, nothing more than rhetoric. Others disagree that Donald Trump does have a plan and will install it immediately upon taking office. No way to know for sure, but Adam Smith, the Washington Democratic congressman, his thoughts on all of that. Congressman, very good to have you first off on this situation in Ukraine. I do want to touch on Israel, sir, what's going on there, and these latest anti-Semitic attacks are pretty much around the world. But on Ukraine and what we can expect to see, what would you want to see?
Well, first of all, I mean, not to be blunt about it, but I think Putin is responding to Trump and the Republican Party's weakness on Ukraine. I mean, he's got a plan to resolve it, but what he and so many others in the Republicans wanted was to cut Ukraine off. We passed a $60 billion supplemental that took 6 months longer than it should have. The Senate passed it a long time ago. House Republicans wouldn't bring it up, and Trump opposed it. And if we hadn't funded Ukraine, Putin would be in Kyiv today. So what Putin is waiting for is Trump to carry out that promise to cut off Ukraine. And if he does, then Putin knows he can take all of Ukraine and he doesn't have to negotiate. You know, what I hope to hear out of Republicans who support Ukraine is that President Trump has changed his mind and he will fund Ukraine's defense to force Putin to negotiate. If he continues with his current plan of saying he's not going to give Ukraine any more money, then no way is Putin going to negotiate an end to this.
Well, it's not as if Putin has, turned his view with all the billions he's gotten from us. So is it so stupid to call the Republicans essentially that for saying there's got to be an end game to this money after money after money, right?
But understand you, absolutely there has to be an end game. But the Republican position is to not support Ukraine in the meantime. Part of that end game is to put Ukraine in a position to defend itself. Yeah, Russia's got a big army now using the North Koreans. The Iranians are helping them. It's a tough fight for Ukraine no matter what. But if they didn't have that $60 billion, if they didn't have the weapons to defend themselves, which is Trump's position, then this would be over. Absolutely, it makes sense to talk about an end game, but peace through strength.
But there is no end game now, even with all the money, right, Congressman? I guess the only reason why I'm saying it is maybe we have to just rethink the strategy here.
But sure, and that's fine. But do you think it improves the chance to get to an end game to cut off Ukraine? Is that something that you would support? And do you think that would help us get to a better place, which is exactly what Donald Trump proposed?
So when you hear Joe Biden apparently trying to front load or get fast $9 billion more aid to Ukraine, you support that?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, look, it's a simple choice at this point. Putin has made it clear that he's going to keep pushing until he takes all of Ukraine, unless the United States and our partners, and by the way, I do agree with Senator-elect Sheehy, it's really important for Europe to step up as well. On Ukraine, they have. I mean, they're contributing a great deal to Ukraine's defense. But that's what we have to do if Ukraine's going to continue to exist.
If I could switch gears, sir, what happened to Democrats? I know they lost the election. I'm stating the obvious. You've been critical of the party's approach, even as the party was getting ready for the election. But the fact is, there's a lot of finger pointing. Nancy Pelosi going after after Joe Biden. I apologize. Biden supporters going after her, Nancy. Well, it's just a mess, and everyone, pointing to the other. And there's a contingent in your party that is saying we don't have to change anything. We just had a bad candidate. What do you think?
Well, two big points to that. One, unquestionably, Joe Biden and his team did an incredible disservice to the Democratic Party by insisting that he run again. And I could walk down that road for a half hour, and I'm not going to. Let's just state the obvious. Clearly, at the age of, 80 when he decided to run again, that wasn't a smart choice. But look, the fundamental problem with the Democratic Party is we have not sufficiently stood up to unacceptable proposals from the radical left. Most of my party will act like, oh, that's just, forgive me, a Fox News fiction and this isn't going on, but when it comes to defund the police, abolish the criminal justice system, abolish ICE, what amounts to open borders, radical identity politics. These things are deeply unpopular, and they should be deeply unpopular. Look, I consider myself to be a progressive Democrat. None of those things, to me, are part of being a progressive Democrat, but they become part of what people see the Democratic Party is doing. And living in the Seattle-King County area, it's not a figment of people's imagination. You know, a lot of those policies are being implemented to horrible effect. And we as Democrats have either, let them, either supported them in some isolated cases, but the bigger problem is not standing up to them, not saying, no, that's wrong. Okay, for fear of offending people in certain parts of our party. We have got to get back to what I consider core Democratic working class values and get away from the, defund police, identity politics,
right,
all of those things that don't help working class people. Sorry, I went on there, but
do you think that your party, Congressman, needs another Bill Clinton, someone who would take on the left, moderate positions, do something like that?
Look, there were
he emerged after Michael Dukakis and that third big presidential defeat for Democrats in 1988. Along he comes in 1992 and changes the script.
Yeah, yes, we need that, but we also need an understanding of the limitations of so-called centrist politics. Look, centrist politics didn't do enough to help the working class. We insisted everyone go to college and get an engineering degree. So yes, but it needs to be modified to make up for the mistakes that were made by the centrist approach as well.
Okay. Very good. Congressman, very good seeing you again. Adam Smith of Washington State.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.